হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
শোনা যাচ্ছে। আমি কখন স্টার্ট করব বলবি? সবাই কি জয়েন করেছে? হ্যালো?
হ্যাঁ, না সবাই বোধহয় এখনো জয়েন করেনি, রাজরূপাদি হোস্ট করবে।
আচ্ছা। এই তিনটে বাড়ি আছে। এখানে স্ক্রিন শেয়ার নেই।
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
It's a great pleasure actually to have you in today's webinar. I mean, same value-added course, and it's my privilege to have the opportunity to introduce you to all of the students. We are highly obliged actually to have you here. Well, to start with, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Anirban Roy. Dr. Anirban Roy started his research journey from ecology unit of the Botanical Survey of India, worked as a plant diversity and ecology of Chilka Lake rather, and was awarded PhD from the University of Calcutta. He also served as project scientist in the Institute of Environmental Studies and Wetland Management, Government of West Bengal, studying the ecology of freshwater wetlands and mangrove swamps of West Bengal. Presently, Dr. Roy is working as a research officer of West Bengal Biodiversity Board, Government of West Bengal. The area of his research interest is focused on the wetland ecology, ecology of sacred groups, phytosociology, macrofungal ecology, biodiversity economics, traditional knowledge in biodiversity, and eco-restoration, etc. He has published nearly 96 research articles in the journals and books of national and international repute, and 5 books of wide acceptance. 5 research scholars have been awarded PhD under his supervision from the University of Calcutta and University of Delhi. He was the guest faculty in the PG Department of Botany, Bethune College, and Department of Genetics, University of Calcutta, and presently teaching in the Department of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology, University of Kalyani. Good evening, sir. We are highly obliged to have you there. Thank you. And I will just pass on the thing to you. You just carry forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the medium will be Bengali or English or bilingual?
Anything. Which one is comfortable to you? Anything. If it is bilingual, it won't be a problem because majority of the students are of Hindi background since depending on the location. So it can be Hindi and English mix, no issues.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Students, is sir audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Students, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Please be interactive to the sir, what sir is saying. And yeah, please make it an interactive session, okay? Please be there. Welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you. At the outset, I like to thank Asansol BB College for inviting me in this certificate course. And today, my topic is broadly on biodiversity because, you know, this is a very hot topic today, the biodiversity. And I am concentrating one of the major components of biodiversity, how we are depending upon the biodiversity, what are the threats and what we can do for conserving the biodiversity for our own existence. So let us start. in our surrounding, we have such type of severies or a chaotic situation, you may say. Maybe this is a disorganized structure. Apparently, you may see this type of in your pond bank, in any roadside, it may be a bush. So this is apparently maybe a chaos. But if you see very closely, we will find this is not a chaos. Some order is there. The order in the chaos. You may find some beehives. You may find some climbers, some lioness. You may find the wasp's nest, some bird's nest, and they have some relations. They are depending upon one another. So you have to have some close relationship among them. So in our surroundings, these chaotic situations, apparently we may see this chaotic situation, we have some order. If you go to a pond bank or a pond, the aquatic system, or any river side, you will find some aquatic system, and under the water, you will find there is some linkage. Say, for example, you will find some macrophytes, some aquatic plants, which may be submerged, maybe floating, maybe emergent. There are some phytoplankton, there are some periphytes, that means some filamentous algae, some fishes, with some nests of the fishes, some breeding ground of the fishes, some aquatic insects, and they are depending one another. So, uh, there is also a relationship. So in any system, just I have showed you in the terrestrial system, Sabiris, the bush, or in the aquatic system, there are some populations, there are some communities. Within these populations or the communities, there are several components, maybe plants, maybe animals, maybe microbes or something like that. And they have the close relationship. So in our surrounding, the wide array of the lives, plants, animals, microbes. So these mosaic life forms in and around us or existing in the world are the biodiversity. So these biodiversity have some levels. Biodiversity may be at the level of species. Say, for example, all these are kingfishers. But if you see, these kingfishers have different colors, different beak size, different fighting mode, different nesting pattern, different foraging activity. So these are all kingfishers, but they have different characters or the character states. So these are the diversity between the species. Say, for example, in case of plants, you have the ficus. In Bengali, this board, Ashotho, Paku, there are so many ficus. Maybe the Ficus bengalensis, Ficus religiosa, Ficus glomerata, there are so many species. So they have the variations in characters or even the states of the characters. So in the level of species, we have the species diversity. On the other hand, may I audible to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And my screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, fine. So then, within a species, say for example, the Oryza sativa, the paddy, we are much fond of the rice. In West Bengal, we have the rice, the diversity of rice. But rice is a single species, that is Oryza sativa. But within the species, we have the several varieties. We have the several traditional rice varieties. Say, for example, Ruhesha, Malabuti, and even Jamai Nadu. There are so many, Govinda Bhog. These are the traditional varieties. And if you see the color of the grain, the color of the husk, the tallness of the plant, they are different. So within a species, there is also the diversity. And these diversity at the level of the genes. So we also, the human beings, we are not alike. All the individuals not alike. We have some difference in our body color, in our skin color, in our hair. We have the difference. So there are some genetic variation within the species. So this is within the species. So we have two levels. One is the diversity between species or the species diversity, or you may say the taxonomic diversity and the diversity within the species or the genetic diversity. Now, the question is, why the diversity? Say, for example, if you go to the hilly region in the Darjeeling Himalaya or in the Eastern Himalaya or Western Himalaya, you will find the plants, the animals, and these plants and animals are not found in the coastal Sundarbans or even in the lateritic regions. Why? Because the climatic condition, the topographical conditions, the soil conditions is different. So the situation or the conditions, maybe the climatic, maybe the soil or the topography or the geological conditions is different. That is why the expression of that condition is the life forms. So these condition, if it is conducive, they form a different type of plants or animals. So these are the root cause for expression of the life. Expression of the life. That we say the habitat. Habitat, that means the conditions which favors to grow, develop, reproduce, and to make the viable populations in a particular situations. So this is the habitat. So the habitat is different. That is, the conditions is different. In the Gangetic plain, the condition is different. In the coastal area, the condition is different. In the hilly area, the condition is different. So actually, these conditions are responsible for the expression of the diversity of the life forms. So this is actually the cause of the expression of the biodiversity. So we have the three levels of biodiversity. One is at the species level, one is the within the species level, and the third one is the diversity of habitat. So in our surrounding, in the existing, in the world, the existing life forms are the biodiversity. Now the question is, why we are very eager to say the biodiversity? Is there any root cause for thinking of the biodiversity? Yes, just to see this figure or this photograph, it says that without these, is it possible to survive? Just to say, starting from the morning to even at the night when we are going to a bed, in this period, we have to have several components, biodiversity components for our own existence. Say, for example, for our breakfast, for our lunch, for our dinner, for our clothes, for our even at the very moment, the oxygen is essential. All these are provided by these biodiversity components, not by the human beings. Mind that. These service is provided by the different biodiversity components. Say, for example, the fishes. We are taking fishes. The fishes are provided by the different species of fishes. The milk is provided by the different domestic animals. So the vegetables, all the cereals, the millets, the pulses, everything, the different species or different varieties or different strains, these are provided by these biodiversity components. So our existence is completely dependent on the different life forms existing in the earth. So this is the very cause for thinking of the biodiversity. So our life and livelihood, that is completely dependent on biodiversity resources. Say, for example, this economic value. Say, for example, food, order, building materials. All the building materials are from the bamboo, for the wood, for our windows, for our door, everything. These are provided by the trees. The medicines, just you see, more than 80% medicines are provided by the biodiversity materials. And out of these 80%, 75% are provided by only the plants. The remaining is the animals and microbes. So just to see, we are taking medicines, and these medicines are provided by the different biodiversity components. Industry, the industrial growth, that is also dependent on the biodiversity materials. For our clothes, for cotton, for the wools, everything is we are getting from the biodiversity components. So the economic activity for our own livelihood, not like the industry, even in the agriculture, fishery, animal husbandry, everything that is dependent on the biological resources or the biodiversity components. So this is the economic activity. Now, there are some intangible benefit we are getting from, or intangible services that we are getting from the biological resources. Say, for example, the maintaining the nutrient cycle. If there is no microbes, if there is no bacterium or fungi, is it possible to degrade all the organic materials? Is it possible to degrade that waste we are generating? So this maintaining the nutrient cycle, all these different forms, different strains of microbes and fungi, these are essential. So these fungi and bacteria, they convert these organic material to different nutrients, and these nutrients are absorbed by the plants, and plants, they produce the food and other nutrients that we are taking or other animals are taking. So these maintaining the nutrient cycle, there is a positive role of different biodiversity components. Now, these are the intangible benefit. These are not the direct benefit, but these are the intangible benefit. Just you see, this is the mangrove field at Sundarban. You know that we have two distinct systems. One is the aquatic system, or you may say this is a marine system, and another is the terrestrial system. And in between the marine and terrestrial, or the aquatic and terrestrial system, we have a transition zone. In case of marine system and terrestrial system, we have the vast coastland, or in case of other wetland, we have also the bank regions or the land water interface regions. So these interface regions are very important. You know, these regions are very productive regions also. We are designating this zone as the ecotone zone. So this zone is protected by the plants, the different animals. Say, for example, in case of Sundarban or our coast, these the marine and the terrestrial landmass. In between these, the coastal region, or in the wet coastal region in our Indian Sundarban part, in the Sundarban part also, we have the different mangrove species, mangrove plant species. They have the different adaptive features like the steel tooth, like the nematophore, and they bind the soil and check the soil erosion. So if there is no mangrove, then the sea will be increased to the will be forwarded to the inward in the landmass, and our landmass will be inundated. So during the disaster also, like Amphan, Bulbul, these mangrove protects the storms, protects the tides, and ultimately protects the landmass where we live. In case of other wetlands, in case of river, in case of other canals, there is also some grasses, there is also some plants, they can bind the soil and they check the soil erosion. So these land water interface regions is protected by the different biodiversity components. This is an important service of the plant. Now, the hydrological cycle, you know it. So the rain is essential, and plants have very significant role for maintaining the hydrological cycles, because you know the plants absorb water from the soil, and these absorbed water is not fully utilized during its photosynthesis, and some of the waters are transpired by the plants, and these water again come to the soil. So plants have very significant role for maintaining this hydrological cycle. So if there is no plant, you know that this hydrological cycle will be surely imbalanced. Now you know the plants have a very important role as the carbon sink, and carbon sink, the different species of plants have different capacity of sinking the carbons or the carbon sequestration. Maybe the above ground carbon sequestration or the underground carbon sequestration. So during the photosynthesis, you know, these carbon is sequestered, and ultimately in the soil, in the plant food, these has been stored, and that is why the entire forest or entire the plant population, they sequester the carbon and the major source of the carbon sink. So these are some intangible benefits. And now we are in the age of industrial age, and in this industrial age, there are, of course, there is some pollution, maybe the air pollution, maybe the water pollution. There are some also mitigation capacity of different industries, but there are some plants, they have a significant role in mitigating the pollutions. Say, for example, there are some plants. Say, for example, this is the Elstonia. This is our state tree, Chatim, this Podom, that is, this is the Champa. All these tree species, they have significant capacity to absorb the suspended particulate matter on the leaf surface, and they reduce the air quality, that reduce the pollution, air pollution, mainly the particulate pollution, dust pollution, because these different plants have the different architecture of the leaf, like the leaf surface of the presence of hair, presence of gland, presence of cuticle, their area of the leaf. So that accumulate the dust particles and remove the dust particles from the ambient air. So pollution mitigation, in pollution mitigation, there are some plants that have very significant role. On the other hand, in the ambient air, we have the sulfur dioxide or lead, especially in the industrial area or the urban areas. So there are some plants. Say, for example, these in the left-hand side, this is known as the Thespacia papulnia, or the porous plant, or this is the Polyelthia, or in Bengal it is the Dedaru plant. These plants have the capacity to absorb sulfur dioxide and lead. So they have the capacity to reduce the sulfur dioxide level or the lead level at in the ambient air. So come to the water pollution. So in case of water pollution, there are several plants. They have the capacity to remove the water particles. So in any aquatic system, in the pond also, in the lake also, you will find a different type of plants. Different type means that is the ecological different type, which is different growth forms, rather, we can say. You will just see in a pond, you will have the submerged plants, you have the floating plants, you have the emergent plants. That means the plants having in inundation or in the above the water. That is the emergent plants. So these the different plants, and they have the different root system. Now these plants absorb the nutrients, extra nutrients from the water, and remove the nutrients from the water and reduce the level of the water pollution. Say, for example, in the water, we have the nitrite or nitrate or phosphate level, the rich amount of the nitrate level. These are absorbed by different plants. Say, for example, this Tupana, this Pistia, or this is the one reed. They have their root system, extensive root system. They absorb these pollutants, organic pollutants, and they remove from the water. So water pollution mitigation, they have the significant role, and this is in several industry also, for the managing the sewage water or other polluted water that can be treated by these aquatic macrophytes. Now the another important service of biodiversity is the pollination, because our food is completely dependent on the service of the pollination. Because just to think, if there is no bees or insects, pollinated insects, is it possible to get our foods, our fruits, or cereals? So the answer is no. So these pollinators, just to see if there is no bees, is it possible to get our breakfast? No, because the bees or the other insect pollinators, even in the other pollinators like bat, like birds, they are also good pollinators. So the pollinators are essential for our supplying our foods. So the biodiversity have very significant role, significant, I can say, rather, service to the humankind in terms of the pollination. So our economic activity also dependent on the service of the pollination. Now it is very important because we are generally moving one place to another when we feel very tired for our daily work. We used to move to a hilly regions or a wetland region or any forest or any sea coast. Now the question is why? Why we are moving? And when we returning back, we are not we are very enthusiastic. We can work more because our stress is removed. Now the question is why? Because when we move to a hilly region or a forest, we will find such things, some landscape or some animals or some plants. They refresh us. So, one of the great ecologists, E.O. Wilson, coined a term that is known as the biophilia. Biophilia, that means we the human beings, we have an instinct to love nature, to love wildlife, to love the plants, to love the habitats. So these are the resources for providing mental health. So this is the aesthetic importance of the biodiversity. And that for this aesthetic importance of the biodiversity or its habitats, we have the ecotourism or we have the tourism. So this is an important piece of the biodiversity components for providing the mental health of the human beings. Now, another value very important, that is we have the ethical value. That is the biodiversity have the ethical value. Since long back, from the Vedic period or in this traditional society, very aboriginals also, they are worshipping the nature, they are worshipping the plants. And in our Puranas, in our Vedas, in our customs, we have the wildlife. We are worshipping the wildlife. We are worshipping the trees. We are worshipping the groups, the sacred groups or the fragmented forest patches. Because ethically, they are very significant, they're very important. So every biodiversity components have the ethical value. So the biodiversity is essential for us, for our own sustenance, for our economic activity, for our ecological activity, for nurturing the human beings. The biodiversity is very essential. Now, come to our country. India is a home of biodiversity. Why? Because out of 17 megadiverse countries, India is one of them. Because we have the varied landscape starting from Himalaya to the coast. We have most all of the ecosystems. Just to see this variation of the climate, this variation of the landscape, we have the immense number of biodiversity components. And in some areas, some plants, some animals are too much concentrated, or you can say these are the endemic regions. So India is a home of biodiversity due to its varied landscape and climatic conditions. Now come to our state. Just you see West Bengal in the map. If you have a longitude, you will have a map of West Bengal. Just to see, we have all ecosystems except desert. We have the hilly ecosystems, these temperate, subtemperate regions. We have the first foothills regions, that is the terrain-dwellers regions, the different system, different topography, and we have the first Gangetic plain. And these Gangetic plain, we have the river, rivulets, canals, floodplains, and these system, the vast Gangetic plain, and in the western part, your college in that part, that is the lateritic regions. And this lateritic region is an extended part of the Chotnagpur Plateau. And this is the different topography, different climatic conditions. You have the mostly dry deciduous forests. And at the southern part, you will have the coastal region. And interestingly, in our state, we have the coastal part, we have the two distinct coastal parts. One is the wet coastal part, and another is the dry coastal part. In the wet coastal part, we have the Sundarban regions. We have the creeks and canals, the tidal wave. So we have this islands, and that's the this Sundarban This is the gift of the nature to India and especially the West Bengal. This is the Sundarban. It's a World Natural Heritage Site. This is the Biosphere Reserve. This is the National Park. And this is the largest deltaic settings in the world. In the Bangladesh part, in the 60% in the Bangladesh part, and the 40% in the West Bengal, in Indian part, and it is in the West Bengal. So we have this very important, very significant wet coastal region or the mangrove ecosystem in West Bengal. And another one is the dry coastal system. We have the sea and the sea beach, the dry coast, the Digha, Shankarpur regions, Bokhali beaches. So the most of the economic activity in the coastal regions, the coastal region is highly productive, especially in the coastal and wetland regions. So in West Bengal, we have the topographical variation, we have the climatic variations, and that is why we have the different systems and different habitats. That's why our state is rich in biodiversity component in terms of plants, in terms of animals, in terms of agriculture, in terms of microbes. So we have the rich in the diversity of life. That's why we are telling that the West Bengal is a state with diversity of life. And now, this is important, and another thing, this diversity of not only the diversity of life, but also we have the traditional knowledge. Because in case of in the hilly regions and the Darjeeling Himalayan regions, just to see that the plants and animals are different, and the people are depending on the plants and animals for their daily life, their livelihoods. When you move to the coastal regions or in the lateritic regions, the components of biodiversity is different because the landscape is different, the topography is different, the climate is different. And that is why the dependence of the people on the biodiversity is different. So the use pattern of the biodiversity components for their livelihood and life, sustaining life, is different. And this is being flowed from generation to generation. This knowledge of agriculture, this knowledge of fishing, the knowledge of medicinal plants, the knowledge of soil, the knowledge of water, the knowledge of cultivation, everything is something different in the traditional way. And this traditional knowledge is being flowed from one generation to generation. So not only we are reaching the biodiversity components, but we are also reaching the traditional knowledge, because traditional knowledge is very significant, is very rich resource of our state, of our country. Now we have the resource, we have the knowledge. Then why we are thinking of the biodiversity? Because just to see this animal, this is the civet cat. There are so many animals, just the vulture, the sparrow. There are so many animals. They are mostly locally endangered, or in some cases they're the scheduled one in case of Wildlife Protection Act. Some of the animals are Asian, which were once is very abundant. Now, day by day, their population is decreasing. The population size is decreasing. And in case of plants, also you find just a few years back, just 10 to 15 years back, you will just consult your parents or your grandfather, you will find there are so many plants. There are so many animals, they are very available. But now these plants, say for example, this Abras picatorius, this is the crab's eye plant, or in Bengal it is gach fall or roots fall, because once the goldsmith, they are using the seeds of this fruit, of this plant, for weighing the gold, because at that time there is no digital balance. So this one seed, all seeds are very uniform size and uniform weight. That's why they're using for weighing the gold. That's 1 roti of gold. Now this plant is very significant, very important for preparing some medicines also. So these plants, these animals, which are once a few years back are very available in our surroundings, but these are not available now, or their population is day by day are decreasing. So this is the erosion of biodiversity. After a few years later or few decades, you will find that there are some animals which are found 10 years earlier, which are not found. So the erosion of biodiversity, if this is going on, then the existence of human beings will be questioned. Now, what are the causes? There are so many causes for the degradation of biodiversity, for the erosion of biodiversity. Just one thing is that is natural calamities, and due to natural calamities, there are obviously some plants, some animals, they are going to be extinct. But if it is due to natural calamities, it is the nature's principle to regain it or to restore it. Just you see in Ayla or in Amphan, in the Sundarban also, in the dense forest, this is my experience rather, in the dense forest, there is no loss of any biodiversity. But in some peripheral area, in some village area, there is a negative impact on the biodiversity. So the natural calamities, if it is in the dense forest area or in some other areas, generally it has the capacity to regain its original components. But if it is for the human cause, then it is very critical to restore its components by the nature. So this is the overexploitation. So overexploitation is one of the major causes for degradation of the biodiversity. And another was the pollution. That is the fragmentation of land or habitat fragmentation. Just you see, once in one area that is full of forest, the forest components. Now, for the agricultural activity, the forest has been cleared and the agriculture started. Now, these agricultural, there is a new system that is from forest ecosystem to agricultural system. Now, this agriculture, that means the crop production. Now, this agricultural system now again transformed to a fishery system. Now, after a few years, this fishery system again transformed to a brick clean area. So, just you see, the alteration of the conditions, alteration of the habitat, that causes the degradation, the series of the degradation of the biodiversity in the time scale pattern. So these are the major causes of degradation of the biodiversity. Just I have told you the alteration of habitat or change in the land and land use pattern. Just in the forest land that has been cleared, now it is from the agricultural land, then the big clean or fishery, etc., etc., etc. Now, another one is the unsustainable agricultural practices. Unsustainable agricultural practices, because the topic is the environment and its sustainability. Because agriculture, the more than 70% people of India or in our state also, they're dependent on the agriculture. And the agriculture is dependent on the soil and the climate. Now, the soil, just to see the soil, the agriculture practice in the production of crops, and this agriculture, now the agriculture in the soil, we are applying the inorganic fertilizer or the pesticides, and ultimately the soil, the soil microbes, soil fauna, soil flora, they are mostly extinct from the agro ecosystem. Now, these agro ecosystem become non-fertile or being sterile. Now, for getting the productivity, you have to give much more pesticides and side by side the inorganic fertilizer. Why the pesticides? Because if there is no nutrients or very less nutrients, even the micronutrients in the soil, then the plant growth promoter factors, that means, which give the immunity of the plant, that is much more reduced in comparison to the earlier period. That's why the attack of the pest is much more. And simultaneously, we are applying much more pesticides or fungicides or like that. So these are, again, these pesticides or in fungicides, they come to our health also, come to our body also. So ultimately, the soil is being destroyed by the unsustainable agricultural practices. And another thing, the biodiversity loss, not in the soil microbes and soil fauna, because these just to know, we are depending upon the productivity, and high yielding variety are coming since 70s, and our traditional varieties. These traditional varieties have also been eroded. Just to see, in the 70s, 1970s, we have in India more than 1 lakh traditional rice varieties. But now we have only 5,000 traditional rice varieties. And in our state, we have more than 5,000 traditional rice varieties in the 70s. But now we have only 500 rice varieties. So during these 50 years, we have lost the traditional rice varieties and other crops. So now the question is why? Why we are talking about these traditional rice varieties? Just to see, during the Aila or during the Amphan, when saline water of the Sundarban area, the sea water, intruded to the agricultural field, because you know the river embankment is broken due to this devastation, and the saline water include into the agricultural field, and the agricultural field becomes highly saline. Now, these HYV, high yielding varieties, they are not growing. The productivity is nil. They are not surviving in that high saline condition of the soil. Now, there are some traditional rice varieties. You just see, the Nuna Bokra, Nuna Shal, Malabuti, these are the traditional rice varieties. But they are growing in the saline soil, and we are getting productivity in compared to the traditional other high yielding varieties. Now, the question is due to this climate change pattern, because the climate change, and due to this climate change, we have there are several calamities like this super cyclones, like the flood, like the droughts, and due to these climatic stress, or due to this climatic devastation. Now, how we can survive due to the post-climatic situations, post-climate change devastation situation? How can survive? We have to survive on the agriculture, on the crops. So we have to have some climate resilient crop. And in that case, we have to have these salt tolerant varieties. We have to have this flood tolerant variety, some drought resistant varieties. And the traditional rice varieties, we have that drought tolerant varieties. Because in case of Purulia, Bankura, you have the Bhutmuri, you have these Nata. In the flood tolerant varieties in the first Gangetic plain, if you go to the Murshidabad area or in the Nodia area, you will find this Bhashamani, this Bhadoi, this Raigor. These are the traditional varieties because the height of the plant is more than 7 foot regions. And in case of in Sundarban also, during these bulbul, during the bulbuls, all the plants, that is the rice plants, they are not straight, except the Tangra Sali, because Tangra Sali, one traditional rice variety, it has the capacity to withstand the this wind, be resistant to the wind. So the wind resistant capacity, the flood resistant capacity, the drought resistant capacity, the salt tolerant capacity, we have some crops, and these crops are not developed by any scientist. These are developed by our farmers, our forefathers. But we are losing all these traditional rice varieties due to some unsustainable agricultural practices. So for our own survival, we have to think of our soil, we have to think of our agriculture, we have to think about the traditional knowledge. Now, the question is, what can we do? We have the resource, we have the knowledge, and we are the mega diverse country. We have the biodiversity hotspot regions. We have 4 biodiversity hotspots out of 35 biodiversity hotspot regions. India have the 4 regions. We are one of the center of origins. Because out of the 10 developed center of origin where the crops have been originated, India is one of the center of origins, and West Bengal is a part, because the origin of the rice was from the West Bengal and other part of India. So we are mega diverse country, we are rich in the resource, not only the resource in terms of biodiversity in terms of traditional knowledge. But what can we do for the sustainable management of our natural resources, especially the biological resources? Firstly, we have to know the biological resource in our surroundings, the local biology. Because until and unless we know what the resource we have, we cannot conserve, we cannot sustainably use it. So firstly, dear students, just to think, just to see your surroundings, what are the resources we have. Just for the plants, there are so many wild plants, they have the medicinal capacity, they have the pollution abating capacity. There are so many plants. So I think the teacher will help you to identify, the local people will help you to identify, to uh, to explore the knowledge of the local people. This is very significant, to know your surroundings, to know your surrounding plants, to know the animals. Because say for example, the fishes. We have vast Gangetic plain in the West Bengal. West Bengal is a very rich in fish diversity, especially the freshwater fishes. But day by day, the fish diversity is being decreased day by day. Because just in terms of the fish culture, these small fishes, they are very significant from the nutrient point of view, from the medicinal point of view. These are very significant. These fishes are day by day, these fishes are being lost because due to the practice of the modern pisciculture. Because this all the small fishes are removed and only some cash crops are being cultivated. So this is very significant. It's very important to know your local biodiversity. That may be the spider, that may be the insect, that may be the fishes. Because there are some important local biodiversity regions. Because there are some regions, just as I have told you, the hotspot in terms of the world context, the Himalaya, the this one, that means Andaman regions, or you can say in our Western Ghat regions. So these are the biodiversity regions, hotspot region, because some animals or some plants, they're endemic to that particular region. But you just to see, forget about Himalaya, just to see your local village or any urban area, there are also some important habitat where the locally extinct or locally endangered or less abundant species are available. Just you see any bush or any abundant any house or any big tree, these are the important habitat for several animals. It is my experience rather in some village in agricultural matrix, you will find some sacred woods. You will find some strawberries or some thickets. And these strawberries or the thickets or the sacred woods, these are very important habitats for some animals. For some plants, which are medicinally very significant, once these are very abundant, now these are very restricted to that particular places. So just to see these important habitats in your locality. There are some habitats which are very specific habitats. Just you see one plant. Just you see, this is one plant. And this plant is a habitat for several lichens, several mosses, several orchids, a huge number of insects, and some other animals also. So just you see one tree. Now this is the tree bark, and on this tree bark, there are some microclimatic conditions. There are some moisture, some soil particles, some special nutrients that supports to survive or to invite some animals, some plants, and then some animals to create some conducive conditions to develop several population. Ultimately, the birth community is developed, and this is a microhabitat. Say, for example, this is a microhabitat for lycopodium. This is the microhabitat for some special fungi. So, in our locality, we have the different microclimatic conditions, and these microclimatic conditions can sustain to develop different habitats, to develop the specific habitats. This micro to sustain the different biodiversity components of your locality. So these are very significant. Now, these plants, these animals are very significant for our own survival. So this is the love and affection of these components are the key to sustain our beings, human beings. So first one is we have the love, we have to have the love, we have to have the affection to our biodiversity components. And until and unless we develop these love and affection to our biodiversity components, surrounding habitats, we can't restore these important or the significant components for our own survival. Now come to some conservation activities. Some educational institutes, some government institutes, some local institutes, some non-government organizations, they are continuously trying to conserve our this endangered or locally endangered or less abundant species. Now, one of these the restoration of indigenous species. Now, several educational institutes also, some in the Panchayati Raj, some blocks, some panchayat, they are also trying to develop this type of conservation. So one pond, we have termed this as Obhoy Pukur, or the fish sanctuary, you can say. So, for these small fishes, they have some specific habitat, because in a natural pond, you see, just in a village, in the natural pond, you will find several plants, and these plants are in the heterogeneous forms. That means there's the submerged plant, maybe the floating plant, or the emergent plant, and at least 25 to 30% of this vegetation cover in the water in the pond. And if you have these mosaic life forms or the aquatic life plants in the mosaic form, the heterogeneous form, then these conditions invite to sustain different smaller fishes. And if you release some locally less abundant fishes like chala, like puti, like tangra, like pabda, I think these can multiply, because in the rainy season, they generally breed, and they need some specific conditions. They need pond. They have the stunting nature of the pond, and they can move. So if we maintain these conditions, these indigenous species can be restored. So this is one thing to develop the Obhoy Pukur or the fish sanctuary, and in our state we are trying to develop such Obhoy Pukur in the different part of the states. Now another thing is the nutritional garden, because there are several plants. They are very significant for providing the medicine as well as for the nutritional supplement. Just to see this, in Bengal it is known as the kule khada or brahmi, Bacopamonieri. There are several fruits also, like guava, like that means carica pepe. There are so many fruits also. Polmisha. There are so many vegetables also. So in some states, they're trying to develop the nutritional garden. So in the educational institutes or even in the home here, you can develop this nutritional garden, because you can easily get the nutrition from these plants just only to plant this kulekhada or brahmi or like. So this is the small step for developing the nutritional garden. It provides the health security as well as to conserve the this biodiversity, which are nutritionally significant, nutritionally important, and medicinally important. And now these plants are going to be in the less abundant, are going to be extinct. Now, the plantation activity. You know, plantation, it is very essential because day by day our green cover is reducing. But the green cover is essential. Actually, we have to have the 30% green cover at least from the total area. But we are losing it. Green cover is leading some the urbanization, some industry. There's so many causes. But how to develop this green cover? There are so many ways. But now green cover may be increased, but we need the diversity because there are so many dependent species on the plant. Say for example, one plant, it is not one plant. One plant, one tree, they sustain several animals, several other plants. They sustain the thousands of insects, thousands of other animals, even microbes. And this is species specific. So generally, we plant these saplings which are cash crop. It is needed. The eucalyptus, akasmuni, there are so many plants. But we have to have some local plant, local trees on which the other animals, especially the pollinators, the birds, the other insects, they are dependent. So the plants which are less abundant in the area, that is to be planted in our area. So plantation of indigenous trees, you may say, and it is also soil specific and it is also climate specific. Now we are planting the saplings which are not suitable for that soil. Say for example, in the riverine zone, if we plant the plants of lateritic region, the growth will not be suitable. So in that case, we have to plant the plants of the riverine zone. Say for example, in the riverine zone, we have to plant the karanju plant. We have to plant this Barringtonia, that means hijol plant. So in case of or in other fruit plants also. So plantation is very essential, and we have to select the species according to the geoclimatic conditions. And in that case, we have to take the knowledge from the elders, especially the traditional people, because they know better the situation of the plantation, the conditions of the planting materials. Now, another sustainable use or the sustainable in the sustainable development, we can say the conservation of medicinal plants, because the medicine is essential, but most of the medicines we are getting from the plants, and most of the medicines are the nutritional. So one philosopher he told that our food thy be medicines and medicine thy be food. So from the food we are getting most of the medicines. So in that case, we have several medicinal plants because we are rich in biological components, especially the plants. So these medicinal plants, these are also very land specific and climate specific. So if you cultivate these medicinal plants, then these local medicinal plants which are getting reduced, or the demanded medicinal plant, the medicinal plants which are very which are in demand in the commercial purpose, they are exploiting or they are accessing these medicinal plants from the nature or from the harvesting. Then after a few days or a few decades, these population of these medicinal plants will be mostly extinct. Say for example, in case of sarpagandha, that is extinct in wild, but in our state there is some in wild conditions. So if you cultivate these medicinal plants, this sarpagandha or this Olor Chandal, that is the Gloriosa superba, so in the market they have the demand. So if you cultivate it and if we link it to the that is the medicinal plant industry, there are so many medicinal plant industries, then they can procure if you cultivate it. So it is one side, there is the conservation of medicinal plant, and another side, the livelihood generation. In several districts also, we are providing some support for cultivation of the medicinal plants. In case of Kuch Bihar also, we are providing in Purulia also, we are providing some financial support, some technical support. And in that case, the Ayush department, they are also providing some technical and financial support for cultivating these medicinal plants, for developing not only the livelihood, but also for conserving the medicinal plants, which are going to be extinct locally. Now the cultivation of indigenous crops that I have showed that so many indigenous crops, they are nutritionally very important also. So just to see, these are the variety of this in Bengali, this the seam. In our West Bengal, there's so many varieties of seam, so many varieties of crop, that is paddy, other crops also. Now we are always cultivating the high yielding varieties. We are always cultivating the varieties which gives much more production. And just I have told you, we are losing the quality of the soil, and the soil becomes the non-fertile. So in that case, through the organic mean, or it is also it has also been proven, this the soil can be restored by introducing the soil microbes like trichoderma, bacillus. There are so many soil microbes. It is already proven, and the soil quality is being increased by adding these microbial fertilizers. And if we restore these traditional varieties, maybe the cereals, millets, pulses, something like that, then not only the cultivation that improves the soil quality, as well as gives the opportunity for getting the livelihood options. So this is the sustainable agriculture that we say, sustainable agriculture, because the soil environment, if we improve the soil environment, then we have to go back the traditional cultivation and the traditional varieties, the rich resources of our country, of our state. So try to reduce the chemical fertilizer and pesticides for keeping the soil health, for better soil health, and for good productivity, and for our future generations. For the soil, that will produce something for our future generation. But now the soil is mostly non-fertile, and for the future generations, we are keeping only the soil, but there is no microbe. There is no fungi, no bacteria. So in that case, the soil will not be the soil. The soil will be very hard soil, and no production will be possible. So this is mostly unsustainable. The agro ecosystem, that means the agro ecosystem is unsustainable system. To make it sustainable, we have to introduce the soil bacteria, or to provide the organic fertilizers. Because if you give this only cow dung, the plant will not take the cow dung. Plant will take the nutrients, the nitrite, nitrate, sulfide, lead, sulfide, etc., etc. But these in the nitrate form, or in the nitrite form, or in the ammonium form, that the bacteria or the fungi, they will do that, and they can provide this nitrite or nitrate. So the soil microbes, soil fauna, these are essential. Soil flora, these are essential for the sustainability of the soil environment. To safeguard our natural habitats, just to see, this is a separate group that I have told you, separate group. This is a picture of photograph of Birbhum. These traditional culture, this is the once the food, the all area, the entire area was the forest. But now the local people, the traditional people worship this small patch. This is the remnant patch of the forest. This is known as a sacred group, and the no plant, no animal, they cannot be destroyed, and they are worshipping this. That's the traditional purpose. So these are the natural habitat, and or it is our duty to safeguard these natural habitats, the wild patches or the wild areas. Protect the trees, the age-old trees. This is the age-old trees. They may be the ficus, that is the I told you, banyan tree, or there are so many age-old trees. But these age-old trees are the important habitat. This is not a tree at all. Actually, this is a system, ecosystem, because you will get the different habitats in this entire big tree or the age-old tree. So for our sustainable development, this is to be considered for protection of these numerous habitats in a tree. So this is all about the biodiversity and the conservation measure that we can take, and I think you will think our rich heritage of our biodiversity. Thank you very much, because the biodiversity is like, without biodiversity, we cannot survive. Our future generation will not survive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Students, is there any question related to what sir has said or what sir has taught? Any doubt, anything? There is a time you can ask for your clearance. We'll just afford you some time. Anything that you can discuss with sir or come up with what sir has said? Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It was actually an informative, highly informative and wonderful session. And sir, on behalf of all the members, I would like to pay you a gratitude. And I heartily thank you, sir, on behalf of all the members of this value-added course and all the members, faculty members of the PG Department of Zoology, BB College Asansol, for this wonderful, informative speech on this biodiversity, its type, its interaction with the environment related to sustainability. And your words indeed heightened and your presence indeed magnify the root cause of our program. This environment and sustainability are great and the best way possible, rather. And I hope students who are here, they will be highly advantageous position. They will be in a highly advantageous position to get all the information that you shared and will be benefited by your extended practical knowledge, sir. And thank you once again, sir, for taking out your valuable time and providing us the opportunity to enjoy your lecture. Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I would love to conclude the session with us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.
Okay.